Hey, welcome back to the Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Before we jump into today's topic, I just want to take a minute to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. Do you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals? Check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you. My longtime friend and law firm coach that I refer to very often all over social media and whenever I get a chance to talk about coaching in general, Patrick Wilson, who's with Atticus. What are, as a law firm business coach, what are your favorite business books that you would recommend to somebody who right now is not coaching and on the fence of coaching? Like, I want to, but it's too expensive, or I can't afford the time, whatever.
So it sounded like there were actual two questions there. One was about what business books would I recommend, and one is why would I do coaching? So, and maybe they're related. So first I would make a distinction. There are different kinds of business books, and one of the divides is between books that discuss principles and those that describe methods, right? Principles versus methods. So the principles books are kind of timeless, right? They can be really old because principles don't change. Right. So you and I are both dads of teenagers, right? So discipline is a principle. Timeout is a method. Spanking is a method, right? I hope nobody's spanking their teenagers, but when they're little, right? I know good parents that spank and good parents that don't spank, right? That's a method, right? Disciplining your kids, teaching them to obey and not do dangerous things. All good parents do that. So on the principle side, Good to Great by Jim Collins is the best book, the business book that was ever written, and that I've ever read, period. Everybody should read Good to Great. The principles there are just amazing. And the other one would be the book I referenced earlier, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. So if you're running a small business, and a law firm is a small business, the E-Myth is going to give you some really good distinctives, a way to think about your role and where you're spending your time, how you're defining yourself. And Good to Great's just such a great book because they based it on data and research. Collins was a professor at Stanford Business School at the time he wrote it. So he had all these business students that he could just go pour through tons and tons of data. And they came to the study with some presuppositions about what made for great companies. And the data turned about half of those presuppositions on their head.
Okay.
So when you read a business book from some business leader, so let's say Elon Musk writes a book about running a business. Here's what I know, and here's what the reader doesn't maybe know. I know that Musk succeeded by doing 80% right and 20% wrong, but he doesn't know the 20% stuff he did that was stupid, right? Because the 80% overwhelmed it. So when you read his business book, 20% of it's bad advice. Or 10% or whatever.
Interesting.
Right? I mean, have you done everything right? Have I done everything right?
No.
No, none of us have, right? So when somebody like that reads a book, a lot of it's a decent percentage of it's bad advice, actually. And so that's why when you read a data-driven book that's based on research, right, it sifts out the wheat from the chaff, right? And so the stuff that doesn't really work. And of course, there's always issues with economies of scale. Good to Great was written for about Fortune 500 level companies, not seven-member law firms or something.
Right.
You can interpret.
But you know what? A lot of the principles do apply.
The principles apply. Good to Great's a little meatier. It's like a good filet mignon, right? You got to chew on it, but there's a lot of nutrition there.
I find myself referencing it a lot, though. The hedgehog theory, the flywheel theory. Like, I've seen these all come into play over the last 5 years. So it's interesting to see.
You mentioned the hedgehog concept, which people, if they haven't read the book, they're like, hedgehog, what the heck is that? And I'll explain in a minute. But that was one of the questions on the podcast interview sheet, was about like a big game changer in your life. And that was one of them. Mm-hmm. So in the book, Collins tells the story. It's one of the old Aesop's fables, but it's really just the Coyote and Roadrunner ancient Greece version, right? So you got the hedgehog who's playing the part of the Roadrunner, and he's kind of chubby and fat and not very stylish, and he just sort of waddles through the forest every day, going about his business. And then you've got the fox, who's very clever and energetic, And of course, the fox wants to eat the hedgehog. And so every day the fox brings some brand new strategy on the hedgehog to try to surprise him. And every day the hedgehog just rolls into a ball of spikes and defeats the fox. The fox can't get through the ball of spikes, and the fox goes off to come up with a new strategy the next day. And so the principle, the moral of the story is it's better to know how to do one thing well than to constantly be trying something new and different, right? So it's about knowing yourself. So I call it your core identity. Who are you at your core? And translating a little bit from Jim Collins, because again, he's talking about Fortune 500 companies. So let's translate into the world you and I live in, smaller law firms. You got to know what you're passionate about. Passion, I know, has become kind of a hackneyed phrase over the last 10, 20 years in the business world, but there are things you really care about, and there are things you don't care about. And there are worthy things that you don't care about, and it doesn't make you a bad person. So I don't watch much TV anymore, but back in the day with cable TV, I'm flipping through and I'm watching Sports Center or something, and the Feed the Children commercial comes on, right? And you got the African baby with the distended belly and the flies. And I am going over to ESPN2 so quick, it'll make your head spin, right? Now, does that mean I'm for African poverty or I hate orphans? No, it just means that there are many causes in the world. That's not one that gets me excited, right? And we've all got stuff like that. But there is stuff that you are truly excited about, right? What really gets you going, right? And you got to think about that because you can't make a living with something you don't really care about. You can't get up out of bed day after day and excite and inspire a whole team of people to follow you over something that you're kind of meh about, right? It's never going to work. You got to be passionate about it. And then number two, you got to have real talent for it. And talent is a gift. Talent is a gift. Talent's not, you can develop talent, but you can also develop non-talent. You got to be passionate about it. You got to be naturally talented at it. And of course, you got to make money. It's got to be profitable for you to do it. Mm-hmm. And so what I see in business is the temptation is to chase money about things you're not passionate about. That's the classic mistake. Yeah. And so I remember when I read the book, it set me to think. I'd already made the move to Atticus, and I was already clear that I was sort of born to be a coach, business consultant, whatever. But within that world, I didn't know exactly what my identity was. And that set me on a path to thinking. And I just meditated on that for about a year. And then I got really clear about sort of who I am as a coach and what I'm good at as a coach and who I work with really well as a coach. And that was a game changer because I make much faster decisions that are much higher quality.
Mm-hmm. For people, because I know I've referred people over to Atticus recently that are truly just starting out, do not have the capital, they barely can buy lunch. Yeah. They have like 4 cases to their name. They're just in the building stage. What are the 4 books that Atticus produces or publishes? I know one is Time Management for Attorneys.
Yeah, these I do have right back here.
Yeah. So tell us the names and the titles of those.
Yeah, so we got Time Management for Attorneys, straightforward. We've got How Good Attorneys Become Great Rainmakers. That's our marketing book.
Yep.
And by the way, this is all referral marketing stuff anybody can do for cheap. Mm-hmm. This is not big SEO spins. This is not a giant expensive pay-per-click campaign. This is building a strategic networking marketing thing that anybody can do. So if you're on a budget, that's great. Hire slow and fire fast, which is our it's more than just hiring and firing. It's our personnel management book, but the marketing people wanted to give it a sexier title. So it's Hire Slow and Fire Fast. And then, back to the straightforward naming, Cash Flow and Profitability.
There you go. So those are the 4 cornerstones, right? So anybody is listening, depending on where you're at in the journey, pick up those 4 books. Now you can't say it's too expensive. It's a total of, I think, $200. And you start there, right? Yeah. Until you can afford the group coaching or whatever the cost-effective methods are. But don't do nothing. Don't sit there and suffer, right? Do something. Pick up those books.
Pick up those books.
I did an exercise with Patrick Wilson a while back, right? And it was based on the book Good to Great. And he said, look, let's do a hedgehog analysis of your business, which we did, but then let's do a hedgehog analysis personally for you. And the hedgehog analysis is 3 spheres that intersect in the middle. The first sphere being, what can you be the best in the world at, right? What are you the best in the world at? Or the next sphere is, what can you also make money at? And then the third sphere is, what do you love to do? Where those three intersect is your hedgehog. But when I did that analysis with Patrick, what I realized is that as far as for Janira and myself, let's talk about us as a visionary integrator team. What I realized is that what I think that we are the best at in our market is running the business of a law firm. John Fisher. And the crazy part is what you did, you give away these two books, which if anybody's listening to this, God, take John up on his offer of the 2 free books. They're massive books. They're several hundred pages deep. But I literally built out my portal systems by basically taking a lot of the stuff that was in your first book, Power of a System, right? But what's beautiful about what you've created with all this evergreen content is I started referring you med mal cases before I ever met you in person.
Right. The number one thing, Tom, where people get drawn to the mastermind, part of it is referrals, but about 50% of it is people who've read The Power of a System and they say, I just wanted to meet the person who wrote that book. That's it. And, I have another book that's actually even more comprehensive called The Law Firm of Your Dreams. My wife came back from a judicial conference in White Plains, and she said to me, are you aware that the judges in judge school are using The Power of a System as a reference book during the conference? I'm like, no, I had no idea. No one's telling me that. I'll go into court conferences, and on the bookshelf of a judge will be my book, The Power of a System.
So it's funny because I got my bookshelf behind me.
Yeah.
I've got both of your books on my bookshelf. They're somewhere amid the books, but I've read both of them. I recommend to everybody. And Juliet, I would say to you, like, we're looking at developing marketing systems. You should be reading that book, right?
No,
I also keep a copy in my office. You should be looking at that because I think that what John is masterful at systems.
Part of mastering the business is so that you can spend your time doing what you love to do. Because you don't want to be a lawyer if you hate going to work. If you hate the tasks that you're doing, Buy Back Your Time is such a great book by Dan Martell. And in that book, he says, keep hiring people not to scale and grow your business, but to buy back your time. Meaning, what are those activities that you're doing right now that you really don't want to do? Buy back your time. Hire somebody to do that work that you don't want to do so that 80% or 90% of your day is within the unique ability, which means the things that you love doing and you're doing it and it really, you're passionate about it. You love it.
Quick break to thank the sponsors of the podcast. This episode is supported by Tona Law, a modern law firm built on integrity and innovation. Learn how they're changing the game at tonalaw.com. Attorney referrals accepted from across the country. You'll see what it's like when you send us a case. You'll have some happy clients. Dan Feynman. Okay, so it's called Build It Backwards. What's book one?
Book one was on finance. That one I wrote so long ago, it's actually out of print. And should I get an extra block of time in my life, I really do want to rewrite that. The second one was Improving Productivity by Fair Means or Foul. And yes, there is a legal disclaimer in there, Tom, between the fair means of increasing productivity and, shall we say, some of the creative ones. We put all of those in there, tongue in cheek. I want to put this disclaimer out there now. Okay. They're not intended to be suggestions to actually implement.
Okay.
Be careful there. But our third and most successful book to date was The Book on Business from A to Z, the 260 most important answers you need to know. And I know that's a very long title, but if you just put in the book from A to Z, it's one of the first that come up. And like most business books, you really don't make any money on the book per se. This is not like writing a novel or Harry Potter. The purpose really of the books is to share what's important in different areas. And you've seen the book, you've got a copy of the book. But it's really to give clients an opportunity to see, oh, maybe you know something enough to put it down on paper and be held accountable to it. And it's really led to significant engagements that we've had over the years. That's really why you write a business book,
right?
Not for the money.
Not to make money on it. Right. Tell me the name of your fourth book and what you think. I don't know if you have it done yet, but conceptually, what do you want the focus of the fourth book to be before we even get into, everything else?
Well, the fourth book is the book on succession planning. And it's really, to be clear, succession planning done properly is a leadership development program. It's how you identify, assess, and develop the next generation of leaders within your organization.
Oh, I like that.
And so if you go back to an excellent book called Built to Sell, the author talked about the fact that you need to make yourself effectively dispensable. When you, as the CEO of an organization, are fully dispensable, it can run without you. And the point there is, with succession planning, you, again, identify, assess, and develop key people into roles. And sometimes the development is 6 months, sometimes the development might be 5 years, without promising anybody anything until they perform and we have opportunities. It's how you plan the long-term growth of the firm. If that develops and evolves into a transition, as it does with many people, and that transition evolves into exit, excellent. And so I collaborate with people in the exit planning industry. In fact, I sit on the board of the Orange County chapter of the Exit Planning Institute. And so I collaborate with a number of people who specialize in different steps in the exit planning process, because we don't do that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Lead Counsel Podcast. Your host, Tom Tona. Go anywhere podcasts are distributed. Follow us. Leave us a 10-star review. Share some episodes with your friends. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you. This episode is sponsored by Tona Law. They're not just another law firm. They're defining what it means to fight for their clients. We get a lot of attorney referrals from across the country. We pay fee participation in all jurisdictions where it's permitted. We focus on integrity, innovation, and relentless advocacy. Tona Law is proving that the business of law can scale without losing its heart. If you want to see how a modern firm is built for impact and happy client referrals, check out tonalaw.com. Mention again the Lead Counsel Podcast, and I'm happy to get on the phone with you.